My first visit on my medieval pilgrimage was to the Anglo-Saxon bowstones in Cheshire. It was an extremely hot day in the north, reaching around 33 degrees. All I had to keep me going was 2 small cans of apple cider. Whilst my lust for adventure was great, my survival instincts were not. At one point I literally nearly passed out from heat stroke, but the Lord above graced me with a well-timed cold breeze. And I thank the Lord for the beautiful breeze that he gifted me as I was almost dying from heat stroke as I was getting up here. So yeah, allowing me to regain my strength and make it up the hill, where the bowstones awaited me. I couldn't find an awful lot of information about these stones, however they are evidently 9th or 10th century and were used for a devotional purpose. There's a socket in the top where crosses used to be, although these crosses were reportedly removed shortly after the Reformation in the 16th century, but they may be the same crosses that currently reside in the local Lime Park. My research indicates that this was not the original location of the stones, and they were found just a short distance away. But according to the ever-changing historical borders of Northumbria and Mercia, they could have been used as boundary markers as well as for religious practices. The area itself was beautiful, highlighting the splendour of the English countryside and its wonderful hills. Look what God's done, man. I couldn't do that, but he can. I truly felt like a little medieval man roaming the roads whilst singing a merry song. For hands of gold are always cold, but a woman's hands are warm. For hands of gold are always cold, but a woman... Which reminds me of the local legend that this site is called the Bowstones because Robin Hood and his merry men stopped there to string their bows. I'll leave it to you to discern the likeliness of that tale. As you can see, I have a very small YouTube channel, but I'm going to stick with it because it's fun. So if you wouldn't mind subscribing, I'd appreciate it a lot. Although I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. It's pretty rubbish, to be honest. Anyway, about a week later, I took upon myself another pilgrimage to the village of Heysham, near Lancaster and Morecambe. Another area which danced along the border of Mercia and Northumbria in the years gone by. I arrived in Heysham at around 7 AM, and since nothing opens there till about 10, my first stop was the famous St. Patrick's Chapel, or what's left of it. It's supposed that the chapel was built in the 8th century. The rocky, uneven ground was covered with stones, sand and mortar, with flagstones over it to provide a more suitable walking surface, which in my silly, uneducated opinion, indicates that the location itself was valuable and was chosen out of reverence rather than convenience. Remnants of plaster and paint indicate that the chapel was once decorated and perhaps funded by a wealthy patron. The chapel itself was doubled in length in the 10th century, to the length which it stands today, which may mean there was a growing popularity in taking pilgrimages there or attending services there, which, due to the very small size of the chapel, would likely have taken place outside of the building, which I imagine would have been quite hard to hear through the aggressive seaside winds. I'll pop up the little recreations found on the information board to give you a sense of how it might have looked back in the day. The famous rock-cut graves lie right next to the chapel, easily recognisable to any Black Sabbath fans. There are 6 of them in a west-east alignment, which is typical for the Anglo-Saxon period. 5 of them had holes above the heads, in which a cross would have been mounted. I'm not sure why one of them was left out. Maybe they were a pagan, or maybe they just couldn't be bothered. They once had stone slabs covering them, and their shallow depth indicates that a full human skeleton would not fit in them. Therefore, it is likely that they were reliquaries, which were like the loose bones of important figures. The local legend states that St. Patrick himself was in one of those, as they believe this is where he washed ashore when escaping his life as a slave in Ireland, although this has not been confirmed by any historians. The surrounding area was excavated and found many skeletons, which shows that the place became a preferred burial site to the local community. Now, if you're half decent at throwing stones, you could hit St. Peter's Church from St. Patrick's Chapel, which I do not support the doing of and wish I'd have chosen a better analogy to tell you how close in proximity these places of worship are to each other. St. Peter's Church was remade by the ever-disagreeable Normans, although surviving masonry of the Anglo-Saxons tells us that they used this as a site of worship in the 800s. I was absolutely blown away by the majesty of this church, and I'm truly grateful and humbled by the experience. Inside I found, just sitting there, the famous Heysham Hogback, which dates back to the mid-900s, when there was a considerable Viking influence in this region of England. The Vikings of this age were found in both Dublin and the Isle of Man, which is only a short distance across the nearby Irish Sea. The carvings on the stone, however, have baffled historians, as they can't seem to agree on what they mean, whether they're pagan, Christian, or a mix of both. Some speculate that the man in the middle is Adam, whilst others claim that it could be a telling of stories of solely Scandinavian origins. The beast heads on either side of the stone and the design itself is akin to something we may consider as paganism, whilst the area it's in, as well as the time period of the 10th century, lends itself to the notion that those of Norse origins who made it may have been Christianized during its construction. It is known that converted pagans did practice a kind of blend of faiths, and this stone may well be a surviving relic at that time. The people of Heysham were fantastic. They welcomed me and showed me around, and everyone who passed me by said good morning to me. I will certainly be returning there for the Viking Festival on July the 18th, though as an Anglo-Saxon boy myself, I may have to watch my back. This type of video will not likely be my usual style, and I'm sorry I haven't gone into loads of depth with my research. I'd like to revisit it properly one day. I absolutely adore spending my time at home, by my desk, learning about early medieval Britain, but something in me needed more. I wanted to see, to touch, to breathe in the very history that I love so dearly. And that's why I took these 2 little trips, fairly local to my homestead in Manchester. And I figured I'd share it with you on my YouTube channel, so consider it a filler episode. My final episode on Alfred is in the works, but my next video will be a deep dive into early Christianity across Britain, which I truly hope you enjoy. And I hope that you got something out of this as well. I definitely recommend visiting it, but if you can't, hopefully this will do. Hopefully you got something out of it. Okay, Godspeed. Therefore it is likely that they were reliquaries. Therefore it is likely that they were reliquaries. Therefore it is likely that they were